I'd love to welcome Nael, Head of Engineering at Perpetua, to the TechTO Talent stage. Let's get some emojis going. Let's get some hearts. Let's get some applause for Nael. Hey, man, what's going on?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Now, you have hired a lot of people in your time, and I got to know, tell me the most surprising hire that you've ever made.
Great question. I would say most surprising hire was also the longest hire. Probably from moment I've met this person until I've actually managed to hire them. It was a 4-year journey. As you know, I used to run DevTO when we had in-person events, and I met this individual at DevTO. At the time, we didn't have the right role for them, but I got to know this person over 4 years. And 2 years later, the opportunity came about. Tried to hire them then, didn't work out, wasn't right for them. I kept trying. A year later, still not the right time. And then finally, in the 4th year is when actually the timing worked out for both of us. And this person joined the team, grew with us, and was one of my most memorable journeys. And I think what's important here is a lot of hiring can be, it's a long game.
And that's for sure. 4 years.
And you gotta, I guess, keep at it. And
yeah,
events like TechTO helps with that.
For sure. I love that you met them at a tech event, but I got to imagine a lot of people are sitting there looking for a job tonight and thinking, 4 years.
4 years, too long, right?
So tell me, what's the average time that it takes from meeting somebody in a random connection like we just had, or hearing someone speak at an event or a live stream and actually landing the position?
I was looking at that at Perpetua just last week. Our average right now is about 22 days.
What? Okay, that's a heck of a lot better than 4 years. And
yes,
now to get to know someone in 22 days, I got to know, what's your favorite interview question?
Great question. I like one of the things I really believe in. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses. And the big part of this interview is to get to know each other's strengths and weaknesses. And are we able to find a match there where the team's strengths plug your weaknesses and your strengths plug the team's weaknesses? And the quicker we are able to get to that understanding of like what are each candidate's strengths and weaknesses, the better the whole things ends up being. So for me, really, my favorite question is really in terms of weaknesses. Are you even aware of your own weaknesses? Do you have you evolved around them? What have you done about them?
All right, so I'd love to see in the chat now for everyone watching. I'd love to see if someone were to ask you what your weaknesses are. Let's see how open and vulnerable people want to be. Why don't you share your weaknesses? And here's what I don't want to see. I don't want to see the Michael Scott weaknesses. I care too much. I try too hard. I work too much.
Yes, those are like those are not good ways, not good things to say in an interview. For me, it's almost like it's not going to work out at that point. If your weakness is I'm a perfectionist, for example, that's the worst answer you can give.
Right. Now, let's get personal, okay? It's easy to talk about other people's strengths and weaknesses, but it's hard, to talk about your own. Like you can see, no one took me up in the chat about, Devin took me up in the chat. Okay, Few needs to work on planning ahead, right? Okay, just trying to stay over water. I love that, thinking a little bit more long-term, thinking a little bit more strategically. But let's talk about you now. Are you ready?
Yeah, totally.
Let's talk about your last interview that you did as a candidate and how you spoke about your strengths and weaknesses.
Awesome. Good question. So I don't like, I guess, or a weakness I have is having a long-term plan about things. I feel, so when you're asking me about like, hey, what's our annual plan, for example, I like having broad directions of like, here are some things that we would like to do and areas we want to invest in, but to come up with a detailed plan that is probably beyond the next 3 months is a weakness I have. I have general ideas about the year, But beyond that, it's up to debate, it's up to change, and we can evolve through that conversation. That's one weakness.
Can I ask, before you go on to something else, I'd love to ask, so you share that in your interview. What does the hiring man, like, how does the hiring manager react? Like, very specifically, was it Joe that you shared this with? Rocco? Who was it?
I'm not sure if that was the one I shared, but yeah. I mean, in this case here, if how do we work with this? Basically, around the team is like, how do we as a team plug this weakness that I have, and can we balance that with strengths that I've got? So this is where kind of hiring comes in. It's like, okay, here's everybody's unique in their strengths and weaknesses, and you're not going to find all strengths. But together, can we lift each other up and plug these gaps?
Now, I got to ask, when you go into an interview, did you just sort of make up that weakness on the spot? Like, how did you even know what you were going to say when addressing that question?
I think those are questions that you have to be prepared for. And I think as an interviewer, and I interview candidates every week, it's an important question to be prepared for. You're going to be asked that, and it can't be fake. Your response has to be genuine. The person across can probably sense if it's not a genuine response. And at the end of the day, you're trying to match people with work so that you can do the best work of your life at that time, and that's a very important question in doing that.
And so, do you take some time to reflect? Do you ask some former colleagues? Do you look at your old performance reviews?
Absolutely. I have good, my previous managers, I have good relationships with a lot of them. I've learned a lot from them. They've given me raw, honest feedback. I get the same thing from my boss today and peers. So I think that's very important to kind of ask for that perspective. We all have blind spots, I guess you want to call them that, and other people can see them. So ask for that information.
And now, once you've done the reflection, you've found this blind spot. I think yours in particular is interesting. So sometimes prioritizing the short-term goals in exchange, at the expense of more long-term strategic planning. Does that ever, do you ever see that come to bear outside of work too? Like maybe in family life or personal life, and ever share that with others?
I hate putting together travel plans and itineraries. It's I like directionally what we're doing. We're going to this place, and then we're gonna figure out things as we go. And
I love that. And so the way you travel is the way you run your team, and that's the development opportunity. I got to say, you being open and vulnerable has inspired a lot of people in the community already to share some of their weaknesses in the chat, and this is amazing. Because sometimes we do the sandwich thing now, like we do, oh, here's what I'm strong at, here's what I'm weak at, but here's how I'm getting better. And I'm seeing a lot of people be very thoughtful around their weaknesses. If somebody's reading this and saying, oh no, I don't know if I can articulate my weakness that well, what do you advise them to do? How do they get started and how do they practice?
I think, practice with your friends, with your peers. It's important, describe a weakness, what you've done about it, what's the journey there, how did you even uncover that that's a weakness, and what have you tried to do better there, and tell the story of these things. Each one is the step where you're learning about how you do things, and how you're evolving yourself.
Now, if a candidate sits down in an interview with you and you ask about their weaknesses and you get a message like this one from Alex, as a Leo, I'm just so freaking stubborn, especially when I feel I'm right.
I'm a Leo as well, and I'm sometimes stubborn as well.
Interesting, because my first reaction when I saw that was like, oh no, don't talk about your astrological sign, but here it actually resonated with you.
Yeah.
So it's funny because a lot has been said about hiring for culture fit, right?
Yeah.
How does that play into your process and how you hire?
I think that's common advice you might read about online. I think there's articles counter to that as well. I don't think it's good advice to hire for culture fit for a variety of reasons. But I think a big part is every person you bring to the team is going to change your culture. And understanding the strengths and weaknesses of that individual, you can then evaluate whether this is a change in a direction that you want or is better. So I think the counter to that, and there's a lot of articles around this as well, is to hire for culture add. Understand how does the team change, how does the organization change with this hire, and is that something that you want to have and be part of, and does that resonate with you? Like you're going to evolve, and your culture is always going to change over time.
So the idea then is that when you're looking, when you're doing an assessment of this person and how they fit into your team, you're not looking for them to articulate how they're exactly the same as everyone there, but you're looking for them to articulate how they're different and how they'll add and how they'll develop your culture.
Totally. What do they bring? How are we going to change? I'm trying to assess that. What happens to the team?
So I'd love to put that question then to the audience. They responded really well to sharing some weaknesses. How about in the chat? How would you add to a team's culture? Now, of course, it's hard to know without knowing exactly the team, but thinking about what dimension do you bring? Maybe for Alex, it's astrological readings and birth chart preparation. I don't know, but I'm curious to see some examples in how people can extend culture and maybe what that means. Now, as they put that in now, I'm curious. You did some numbers last month, 22 days from, for the process. Did you also do some metrics on the number of candidates that you've put through the process recently?
We did 550 interviews this year.
Year to date. So there's still more to come.
More to come.
Now you've done 550. What are some common themes of how candidates can do better? What are like the most common missteps that you see that you go, oh, it's such an easy thing to fix?
I think it's like the authenticity around your strengths and weaknesses, and how it applies to the job that you're doing. Are you able to relate? I don't know anything about you. I just met you. Not you, Jason, but like the candidate. But I just met you, and can you relate? Can you help you here? And if you can kind of shortcut the process and tell me about your strengths and especially your weaknesses, and I can kind of imagine what future could look like with that and how this fits. It makes the interview process much better, because then the rest of the interview is built around like assessing those strengths and weaknesses. All the teams and all the interviewers at Perpetua fill out scorecards around that strengths and weaknesses, and then at the end we come back and sit together like, what signals did we pick up on? Did we pick up on the same strengths? Did we pick up on different strengths? Did we pick up on the same weakness? Did we pick up on different weaknesses? And then that's how the whole process works.
So you talked about extending the culture of the team with every new hire. Tell me about what is the culture of Perpetua?
That's awesome. We're ready to break through a lot of barriers in achieving what we're trying to do. We're building software for advertisers across the globe to optimize and grow their sales on e-commerce sites like Amazon, Instacart, Target. And we've solved a lot of hard problems, and we have a lot more to solve. So we have a dedicated team, very tenacious, won't stop at different problems, and they do it together and have fun doing it.
I love it. Now you talked about the organization helping the candidates with their weaknesses, with the organization's strengths. How about what are the weaknesses at Perpetua that you're trying to shore up with your new recruiting?
Great question. So we're, as everybody else here, we have a lot of ideas, and right now we're looking for product managers to help us bring those to reality, engineers to help make those reality, designers to, we build beautiful software that helps advertisers do this. So that's an important step. So really, those are all the areas that we're investing in and have been throughout the year.
Amazing. I love it. And you've got a link for the careers page just posted right now in the chat. So definitely check
Awesome.
that out. We've got
Yes, totally.
we've got a couple questions from the audience I want to make sure we get to.
Yeah.
The first is about synchronous versus asynchronous interviews. Do you ever run asynchronous or recorded interviews?
Not recorded. We do have, I guess, we do have a small code test that you do on your own time. Really, the point of this one is not so much the code itself, but then when you come and present to our team, how you present the decisions that you've made to solve this really simple assignment. The rest of the interviews are all synchronous and happen online.
I love it. And then I think this was a great closing question. Alex asks, as a candidate, what can I do to get your curiosity and turn it into getting your attention? And if I were to read between the lines, a lot of people think they might apply on that job link that we just put into, and it goes into a black hole. How do they stand out, and how do they get into an opportunity to tell you about their strengths and weaknesses?
I think I love hearing stories. Reach out on LinkedIn, tell me your story. Apply and send like, hey, this is me, and this is what I've done, and this is how it applies to Perpetua. I think that's a good way to do it. Like you're connecting with people here today. Don't just apply to the job and let it sit somewhere. But reach out to people there and see if you can spark their curiosity about you.
Unbelievable. Well, I think you sparked a lot of curiosity from people here in you and your role leading engineering there, and of course Perpetua, the company as well. I know a lot of people are going to sleep reflecting on their strengths and weaknesses tonight. How do you feel about that?
It's awesome. And reach out on LinkedIn. Tell me about yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing and being just so open and vulnerable and setting the example to the community. Can we get a round of emoji applause there?